welcome, Kathleen. Thank you so much for being with us today.
You're welcome. Thank you, everybody. How is everybody? I love to see all these smiling faces. It's so awesome. So today is, we're right into the new year. So a lot of people want to look at New Year's resolutions, and tackling stress and improving mindfulness are many people's New Year's resolutions. So I'm so happy to be giving these resources to you today. So who am I? My name is Kathleen Lisson. I am a meditation and mindfulness teacher. I'm a certified lymphedema therapist, and I have a practice in San Diego, California. Oh, and now it doesn't, there we go. The objectives of today, we're going to talk about the effects of toxic and chronic stress on the body. We're going to discuss the differences between positive, tolerable, and toxic stress. And I'll try to go through that pretty quick so we can spend most of our time discussing interventions that will reduce the effects of stress on the body. So we're going to try 4 types of mindfulness today. A loving kindness meditation, awareness of sound, which is very simple. We can do it anywhere and it's exactly how it sounds. A self-compassion meditation, and then upper body range of motion with breathing that'll get us a little more active after we're sitting and being, contemplative and meditative for a little bit of time. So first, I want to open up with what I call a mindful moment. So I'll invite everybody to, I invite you to sit in a position that's comfortable, you're relaxed, but you're also alert. I invite you to keep your eyes open or close them, whichever is more comfortable to you. If you keep them open, you could possibly stare off to a point in the distance. And I just want to get us settled in. I'll invite you to just take a few deeper breaths. And as we're breathing, I'll invite you to feel the weight of your body on the chair, wherever you're sitting. If your feet can touch the floor, which mine don't, you can feel your feet on the floor, but you can feel your back on the chair. Just feel the weight of your body on the chair. And then I'd invite you to look inside if you want to and see how you are right now. Today may have been a busy day for you. There may be some things that you've done today. There may be things that you have yet to do today after our presentation that may be kind of bouncing around in your mind. And just as we're sitting here right now, I invite you to just allow all that to be here. And now I invite you to think about why you logged on today. Of all the places you can be, you pressed, yes to the Zoom, and you came into our community this evening. And just, I'd invite you to focus on what you want to get out of tonight's meeting. We can take one deep breath again. And then if your eyes are closed, I invite you to open them. You can wiggle your fingers, wiggle your toes, just wiggle around your body a little bit as I get ready to dive into some serious PowerPoint slides with a lot of words on them. Sorry, but here we are. So let's talk about what toxic stress is. And I'll give us a minute to read the slide. And just understand that toxic stress response is the important thing to understand is that it's prolonged response of stress in our body, and the response of our body to all these chemicals, these stress chemicals, is an abnormal physiological response, and the risk is end organ dysfunction. So you'll get an illness. Specifically, if you have toxic stress in your childhood, that severe, prolonged adversity, without that nurturing relationship to help buffer those stress responses, without a support of a caregiver, it can end up in illness, in organ dysfunction. So what happens during toxic stress? We may all be able to agree, like, this is not a good thing. Let's look more at it and try to understand it. So the important thing to note in this slide is that some things that happen to the body during stress is the cortisol hormone is activated, an inflammatory state in the body is occurs, and then if the body is failing to normalize these changes after the stressor is removed, there's a risk of long-term adverse health effects. So it is the hormones that our body emits in responding to a stressful situation. If those hormones are allowed to continue in the body, we end up seeing an inflammatory state in the body. And then that eventually, if there's no buffering, healthy response, if the stress hormones aren't allowed to dissipate, our body isn't allowed to go back to homeostasis, we will see adverse health effects. And some of those health effects are in the body, and then they're also how we react to the world. Maladaptive coping skills, we can have poor stress management, unhealthy lifestyles, and physical disease. So specifically, why am I talking about toxic stress at a lymphedema support group? It's because that toxic and chronic stress can be specifically connected to cancer. Some of you may have primary lymphedema diagnosis, which is genetic, but some of you may have secondary lymphedema, which is a side effect of cancer treatment. So in this journal article, it talks again about the hormones that I mentioned earlier. The hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis is the hypothalamus and the pituitary and the brain, and the adrenals are on top of our kidneys. There are body's stress response system. That's how the stress hormones are made to allow us to react to a stressful situation and survive. And then the sympathetic nervous system is that fight or flight. That's the sympathetic response of the nervous system, allows our body to react to these stressful responses. But if we turn these on and chronically, and they're not allowed to go offline, they can cause immune disorders and inflammatory responses. And Dye et al. Said there is no doubt that this is harmful to the body. So specifics, the nitty gritty, how does chronic stress promote cancer development? These excessive levels of stress hormones induce DNA damage, and they prevent our immune cells from effectively controlling the cancer cells when they occur in the body, and that increases inflammation and suppresses immunity. So this is some scary stuff, Kathleen. Do you mean that I have to live on a mountaintop and meditate? No, we do not have to live on a mountaintop and meditate. Though I would highly recommend, if anyone wants to move to San Diego, our oceans are beautiful. But you can live right in Austin and have some tools to combat these stress responses. So, but first, let's look at different types of stress, because all stress is not bad. So not only do we not have to live in a mountaintop, but I'm not saying you have to shield yourself from every single type of adversity. Overcoming adversity, encountering adversity is very good for us if we have a normal stress response. So the normal positive stress response is normal. This is the stress response we get from taking a big test, giving a speech in front of a meeting, for me having, coming and telling you this information on a webinar. It's essential for our growth and development, but it's also infrequent and it's mild stressor. And the person is supported through the stressful event. So if you're taking a test or you're having a presentation at a meeting, when you go home, there's a loved one there, and that person is helping you to prepare. They're cheering you on. They are listening to you. If you have any frustrations or any feelings, you can feel their support. So the essential part of having a positive stress response rather than a toxic or a tolerable stress response, or other than just a toxic stress response, is that you have the support through the event. And this positive stress results in increased motivation and resilience. So this is not all stress is bad. Positive stress is very positive. And you'll see that the biochemical reactions, you get the cortisol, you get the adrenaline when you're speaking at that meeting, but your body is allowed to return to baseline. The stressors go away. Those stress hormones go away. So what is tolerable stress? Tolerable stress is the response is more severe, frequent, or sustained. I had surgery. I was talking to Angela. I had surgery 2 weeks ago. So it's a tolerable stress because my husband was there. I had this responsive relationship. I had strong social and emotional support. People were supporting me. And the biochemical reactions, again, this cortisol, adrenaline that I've been having, this fight or flight that I've been having for 2 weeks, it does have the potential to negatively affect me. But because I have this protective relationship, the stressors, and I have the tools that I'm going to teach you, I'm able to reduce my stress response after my surgery, so it can return to baseline. And I've been doing that with breath work. I've been doing that with mindfulness. I've been connecting to people in my community. I've been getting energy work from a fellow lymphedema therapist. In my own MLD, I've had MLD once a week for the last 2 weeks. And then toxic stress, which we need to get away from. It's this prolonged activation of the stress response with the lack of support. There's no reassurance. There's no emotional attachments. You really feel like you're going through this alone. And that unfortunately results in the failure of our bodies to recover fully from the stress. And it results in increased vulnerability to bad negative health outcomes. And you may have seen this with friends or people that that are just, they've gone through something and there's just absolutely no support for them through their stress response. So just going over this in a different way, tolerable stress, it does affect the body's alert systems. But the activation of it is limited in time. They know there's an end point to it, and it's buffered with these positive relationships. That's what we have to have as our secret spices in our recipe for stress. We have to have this positive effect, this positive relationship with others, which I love that I'm saying this in a support group, because you all are this positive buffer for one another in your stressful life events. And then again, I feel like I said this like 8 slides ago. I'm just going over it in different ways. The toxic stress response happens when there's not adequate support. The prolonged activation of the stress response system disrupts the brain architecture in children. It disrupts the way the organs are developing, and it increases the risk for stress-related diseases in the adult year. So when toxic stress happens to a child, they're called adverse childhood experiences. When children have these toxic adverse childhood experiences, research has shown that the result is when they have the adverse childhood experiences, but they don't have this buffering adult relationship, the result is their brain architecture is, as their brain is developing in childhood, it doesn't develop the same as one without toxic stress. So they end up having organ dysfunctions, and they're more susceptible to disease as an adult. So it's very important to catch the toxic stress early if it's happening to a child, and have them have a buffering relationship. And it's important as an adult, if we ourselves have had adverse childhood experiences, to have these tools that I'm going to give us today to buffer our stress as an adult. So a lot of people will say like, oh no, I don't have a lot of stress in my life. Sometimes you have to see what the body is doing to respond to the situation, and kind of look at it backwards to see if the body is responding with the stress response, even if the brain isn't recording it as a stressful event. So that will be fight or flight, which a lot of people are familiar with. Like either someone will get overly angry, the anger will be out of it'll be kind of like too curiously too much for the situation. They'll get angry over little things, or they'll fight. They'll not want to talk to you or anyone. They'll want to get out of that situation. They'll just kind of shut down. They won't want to have a conversation about it. The freeze response or dissociation, like they just won't be moving around. They won't be responding too much to it. Or the fawn response, which is kind of new for me. The concept that, especially like I think of it as like a girl, the child will do whatever she can in this stressful relationship to try to satisfy the person who's stressing her's needs. So it's just like trying to take care of everything, get everything under control, and make sure that that person is placated. If you see someone with this fawn response, like they try to take care of everyone in their life and they are not accepting help for themselves, that's a response to the chronic stress in their life. Some other things, even when we think of the stress response as a lot of people will say, like our Surgeon General in California, Nadine Burke-Harris, will say like, it's like a bear, because the bear's on our flag. Like it's like if you are walking through the woods and you see a bear, your stress response comes up. All of a sudden your adrenals are up, you're breathing, your heart is pumping blood that gets to your muscles, so you can either fight the bear or you can run away from the bear. But then once you run away from the bear and the bear's not there, then like your body just naturally, like you take that deep breath, like, oh my gosh, and you go home and you tell like, oh, I had the, you know, like I'm inside my safe, warm house and I'm telling my loved ones, like I saw a bear, and they're hugging me and saying, oh my gosh, that must be so scary. So that's the normal stress response. But sometimes there's a chronic stress response, and that's the idea that what if the bear lives in the house with you? What if the person that is your stressor is in the house, and then your body can never get away from that stress response, especially as a child, if you have no control over someone else being a stressor in your life. Another thing that might happen with stress is self-criticism. So even though like the situation is over, you're sitting in your chair and you're criticizing yourself, and that inner critic is hounding you and saying these negative things to you that you would never let someone say to a loved one. If someone said like, you're no good, you'll never be worth it, you didn't do a good job today, like you would never say, let someone criticize someone you love like that. You would say, hey, you have to stop that. But somehow some of us have this inner voice, this inner critic in our body, that this self-criticism, we're saying these things to ourselves that we would never say to anyone else, we would never let anyone else say to a loved one of ours. This stress response Sometimes when you're criticizing yourself, your stress hormones are going off, even though there's nothing outside of you that's immediately stressful. Your blood pressure is increasing, your heart is increasing, and all these cortisol, adrenaline, stress response are coming because of our own self-criticism. And that's something we have to also be aware of as a potential stressor in our life. And sometimes the cumulative trauma throughout our lives is just very uncomfortable. And if we have these intense fear or anxiety feelings, we have this urge to protect ourselves from these overwhelming feelings. We need to escape, whether it's escaping and looking at social media or watching a movie, just numbing out, having a glass of wine. Any of those behaviors can kind of be a key to, are we having additional stress in our life? Why are we, thinking of smoking or thinking of drinking or any of those stress response addictions in our life? And again, I brought this up a little bit earlier, but these adverse childhood experiences, if you experience 4 or more adverse childhood experiences, it's associated with excuse me, a significantly increased risk for 7 out of 10 leading adult causes of death, including heart disease, stroke, cancer, COPD, diabetes, Alzheimer's, and more. And I have a link later. If you don't know about the adverse childhood experiences, I have a link. NPR did a really great article where they did a self quiz, and you can quiz yourself on if you've had adverse childhood experiences as a child. So, oh my gosh, so much information, Kathleen. You managed to scare us here in early January. So I'll invite you to shake it out. You can wave your hands around or just like move around, kind of get all that crazy stuff out. Because now we're to the good part of it, where I'm going to show you some tools that you can use to reduce your stress. I kind of wanted to put the facts first so you understand the seriousness of reducing your stress, because a lot of times I think in today's society, like self-care has been relegated to like get a manicure or take a bubble bath. And those things are kind of frivolous. So we want to be the kind of person who can handle things and take care of everything. And we don't need that silly stuff. But I wanted to give you the facts so you can see clearly. I invite you to see that this is a serious issue, and we can do things like the mindfulness techniques that I'm going to show you to reduce our stress. And it doesn't have to involve a bubble bath unless you like bubbles, which I like bubbles. So you can do it in the bubble bath. But more importantly, the mindfulness things I'm going to show you, you can do in your everyday life. And for most of them, no one is knowing that you're doing them while you're doing them. So the first moment that you find yourself a little stressed out, you can use these very easily to reduce your stress levels. So this is called resiliency. Resiliency is the catchword for this. It's the ability to think clearly, make intentional choices, communicate, and connect with others during the stressful situations. So we're kind of taking us out of fight or flight or fawn or freeze into this resiliency where there is a stressful situation, but you can think clearly through it and make some good choices. You can communicate with others while the stress is happening, and you can connect with others to have that supportive relationship during stressful situations. So this is the big one. These are proven with science. These are the stress busters. I talked about it a lot in the last 20 minutes. Having supportive relationships is essential if you're going through stress. Also, quality sleep, balanced nutrition, which I know Dr. Zuniga is excellent advice with dietetics, physical activity, which your CLT will also talk to you about, experiencing nature, getting out in nature, viewing like trees, even like pictures of nature, but especially being out in nature and walking, mental health care, taking care of your mental health, and mindfulness practices. So I will take care of showing you some of these mindfulness practices, but definitely this whole list is all these tools that you can use to reduce the stress in your life. So what are we doing in meditation? I'll give you a minute to look at the slide. So underlying all of the different meditations, the main concept is we're coming to an awareness of the present moment. What's happening right now? What's happening inside? What's happening outside? And then importantly, the idea that the emotion that we're feeling right now is not going to be permanent in our lives. Thoughts arise and then thoughts fall away. And then if we're always in the present moment, we can see as things are shifting, allowing thoughts to come and go without attachment, without trying to hold on to them. And then we see once we don't get caught up in that thought, whatever is frustrating us, whatever the inner critic is saying, we learn that there's an underlying calmness to being in the present moment. Again, we can look at our minds and be aware of the patterns of thinking that habitually arise. So if there's something you're always saying to yourself, like, why am I always late? Why am I always, angry? Why can't I be more patient? Yada, yada. So if we're seeing these thoughts and not getting caught up in them, we can allow them to fall away without judgment, which is easier said than done. So this is the ultimate goal that you can invite yourself to see, but it's definitely not something that you just do 10 minutes of meditation and all of a sudden you're the Dalai Lama or anything like that. So I'm not telling you all to become enlightened by the end of this thing. So the idea is like, can I just try a meditation app? And I do have meditation apps on my phone, but I'd like to introduce the concept that sometimes if we're dealing with a lot of stress, meditation can feel overwhelming. Traditional meditation and mindful techniques, like just sitting with your eyes closed and your legs crossed and listening to your breathing and like trying not to connect to your thoughts for 10 minutes, that may be a lot for some people. That may be too much for some people. Some people may have anxiety come in or fearful feeling comes in and think that they're no good at meditation or they're somehow a failure because these feelings are overwhelming. And I want to say to everyone, it's well documented in the literature that all types of meditation don't work for everybody. So if you try to find an app and it doesn't work for you, that doesn't mean you failed. It just means we have to try to find a different type of mindfulness that does work for you. Specifically, if you have this self-criticism, this critical voice that I talked about earlier, you can find it difficult to practice mindfulness consistently because of this inner voice that's telling you like you're failing at meditation. Why did you have so many thoughts? This meditation is horrible. When can I get up? This is so boring. All these inner critic thoughts are going to happen, and that may be overwhelming your ability to take meditation as a practice, as something you want to do consistently. And again, it's not your fault. It's not your failure. It's documented in literature. You're definitely not the only one this happens to. So Germer and Neff have stated that if you have this self-criticism, you may benefit from starting your mindfulness practice with self-compassion, a self-compassion mindfulness before you go on to like Vipassana or just breath work. And you can definitely are invited to try it tonight because one of our meditation practices will be self-compassion. But if you try everything and you're trying to sit and you just find that it's just not working, there's just overwhelming feelings, the important thing is not to try to press on try to increase your meditation to somehow overcome it, this is your body sending you a really healthy signal that it may be time to find a mental health professional to help you deal with these feelings of overwhelming fear and anxiety. So I would definitely invite you to not try to somehow, no pain, no gain, meditate harder through it. If you're finding that you're really overwhelmed with different types of mindfulness and it's really not for you, that may be your body saying, hey, you know what, we have something that we can bring to a mental health professional to get some help from this. Okay, so this is the most awesome concept. It's called the window of tolerance. So think of your daily experience, like where you are on this scale. 0 being you're totally checked out. You don't want to get out of bed. You just want to dissociate. You're not in your body. You don't feel anything. You just want to watch TV and not be bothered and not feel anything. And then 10 is so 0 is like freeze and 10 is like fight or flight. Like you're just zoned at, there's so many chemicals, there's so much crazy going on. You can't think straight. Your heart is pounding, like your energy is everywhere. In either of the 0 or 10, you're really not able to make some good decisions, right? You're really not in that resilience zone. So I invite us to look at this window of tolerance and see well, which is it from a 3 to a 7? That's the comfortable zone to us. Or it could be a 4 to a 6. So whatever it is for you, what is the comfortable zone where you're not zoned out and you're not freaked out and you're just able to, talk to someone and have a conversation and make decisions and live your life comfortably. So that window of tolerance, whatever your middle numbers are, we want to be able to bring you back there if you're going either towards the 0 or towards the 10. So what are we going to do to bring you from 0 or 10 back to that 5, 6, 7? We're going to use these grounding resources when we're overwhelmed. So I want to teach you this before we go into the meditation, but these are also this is the most valuable stuff. Because this is the stuff you can use all the time. Anytime you feel like you just zoned out and you don't want to go to work, you don't want to make a decision, or whether you're just zooming everywhere a million miles an hour. This is how we can get ourselves back into the place where we feel like ourselves, and we can make the good decisions and take the good actions. So we use our body and the feelings from our body to reconnect to our body. So some of the self-compassion behaviors are like sight. We can keep our eyes open. We can look at the colors of the rainbow in the environment. We can look into the eyes of a pet or a loved one. This is definitely something for me. When I'm zoned out, I can get back and feel more comfortable just by looking into my husband's eyes, looking into my dog's eyes. Looking out at a nature scene can make you feel relaxed and peaceful. Sound, just listening to sounds in the environment can sometimes self-regulate us. There's a whole class of soothing music that they've actually done research on. And the #1 most soothing song in the world, proven by research, is a song called Weightless by a band called Marconi Union. I broke my nose 2 years ago and I had to have it reset while I was awake by a doctor with a hammer, with a thing, and then he yanked it over. And I listened to this song before to deregulate me from the fact that someone would be manually resetting my nose, and it worked like a charm. And then the doctor really liked it. The doctor liked it, and he emailed me, the doctor from Kaiser, and he's like, what was the name of that song? I'm going to add it to my library of music. This is a really great one. You can ask a person who's safe, like a loved one, to record a reassuring video or voicemail to you, encouraging and reassuring, and then keep it on your phone. And then anytime you're feeling outside of the window of tolerance, just listen to that voicemail or look at that video and kind of reconnect, allow that supportive relationship to reconnect to you. Some other ones are touch, feeling your body against the furniture. That can sometimes center us and bring us more into our bodies. You can place one hand over your heart, or two hands over your heart, or one hand over your heart and one hand on your belly, and just breathe, or just have it be there. Feel the feeling of your hand on your heart, and then feel if there's an emotion that happens in your body when you do that. Do you feel more peaceful? And then focus on that emotion. And then it doesn't have to be one hand or the other, but they have found that you have a favorite hand to put over your heart. So you don't figure out, like, do left hand and right hand and figure out which one's good for you. Fidget toys are really good. They were really popular a couple of years ago. But those little fidget spinners, anything, just sometimes playing with something can bring us out of this, back into our window of tolerance. And then thoughts, thinking to yourself about someone who makes you feel supported, who is the person that when you think of them, you smile. And then when you think of them, you'll generate this feeling in your body, right? And then focus on that feeling, that positive feeling, that thinking of them. And then also thinking about a happy place. We know how that was in a famous movie. Go to your happy place, go to your happy place, and focus on the feelings generated in your body when you have the thoughts. For me, when I have these things, when I think of someone who makes me feel supported, I feel warm right here in my body. And then being able to focus on that feeling inside my body, that safe feeling of warmth, will bring me back into my window of tolerance. And then also movement. If you just need to get up and move somewhere, you can count backwards from 20 as you walk around the room, and then you can feel your feet while you're walking. You can push against a wall or do squats against a wall. And just that movement of your muscles can bring you back into your body. Forearm massage, just giving yourself a gentle massage on your forearms. You can definitely do this anywhere, and people think you're just, your hand hurts, but really you're calming yourself. And then I have a labyrinth. I have a physical giant fabric labyrinth, and then walking the labyrinth. Sometimes they're at churches, sometimes they're at hospitals. Walking the labyrinth can also help us with grounding. Okay, so let's go into the first of our meditations. Loving kindness and compassion meditation can cultivate the qualities of warmth and goodwill towards ourselves and others, and that can be essential for tolerating and transforming difficult states of mind. So we'll go into a meditation practice now. It's a 2-minute practice. I invite you to join me. If anytime it feels overwhelming, return to those resources that we just went through, whichever one struck you as good. So I'll invite you to assume a posture which is relaxed yet alert, and take a few deeper breaths. You're invited to keep your eyes open, or you can shut them, either one, whichever feels better to you. And then I'll invite you to think of a person who loves you very much. And I'll invite you to imagine them sending you their love and well wishes, this person that loves you very much. Now I invite you to send the love that you feel back to that person. emotionally, because we know that just like you, they wish to be happy as well. And you may wish to repeat silently, may you be happy. May you be healthy. And may you have ease of being. May you be happy. May you be healthy. May you have ease of being. Okay, so we can take one last breath. And then open your eyes. If they're closed, wiggle your fingers and toes. Do any stretching you need to. And just in your heart, take a moment and feel what did you notice when you did that practice? And just think, when could you add that to your self-care practices? When is a good time in your schedule if you like that? Just take a few minutes to think of someone you love, think of them giving you love, and think of you giving them love. Okay, so now we'll go into our next practice, which I'm gonna have a timer for. So this is just like it sounds, awareness of sound. So we can keep that alert yet relaxed posture. I invite you to close your eyes. If you want to keep them open, that's fine too. And we'll just focus on the sounds in our environment, and I'll keep the time. One more breath. Okay. And then we can open our eyes, wiggle our fingers and toes, and stretch if we need to. Just inside, notice how that felt. What did you notice about that practice? Were there some sounds that we didn't notice before we did it? And I'll invite you to consider when you could add that to your self-care practices. That's very easy. If this helps you to get back in that window of tolerance, listening to our surrounding, it's very, very easy to do that pretty much anytime and anywhere. Okay, so we'll go into a 2-minute self-compassion practice. Again, if this feels overwhelming, we can return to our resources that we looked at before we started the mindfulness. So I invite you to take a relaxed yet alert posture. You can have your eyes open or they can be shut. And just take a few breaths. And I invite you to consider that it's hard to experience chronic stress. And this is part of being human. There's nothing wrong with feeling frustrated about our stressors. And we're definitely not the only one that has chronic stress in our life. I'll invite you to put your hand on your heart and say something kind to yourself. What would you say to a friend who is struggling with chronic stress? Because we know we are not the only one in the world that's feeling this frustration. And I'll invite you to take a few moments to ground yourself by feeling your body against the furniture. If you want to rub your hands against your thighs to feel the texture of your pants. And then you can open your eyes, you can wiggle your fingers and toes, you can stretch after that one if you need to. And just think to yourself, what did you notice about this? This can be a very deep practice. And I'll invite you, if you think that this is good for you, this helped you, when could you add this to your self-care practice? Just taking a moment to say something good, sweet to yourself, and notice. It's very important to notice that we're not the only person that this is happening to. There are people all around the world that are also suffering similar to us. Okay, so this is my fun one. This is my friend Peggy MacArthur. She loves this one. I taught it to her and she really likes it. I learned this concept at the Foldy Clinic, which is a lymphedema clinic in Germany, from their mental health professional there. So it's a combination of upper body range of motion with breathing. So I like to, as we inhale, we open up like a flower, and then as we exhale, we can fold in. So it's a 1-minute practice, and go according to your own breath. So we're going to take those deep diaphragmatic breaths all the way up with the inhale, and then all the way in with the exhale. So I'll let us start now. Opening up. And then closing in. Oh, stretching out if we can. And then closing back in. So if you want to get creative, you can definitely do the feet as well and stretch out, and then crunch in the little toes, and then stretch our whole body out, opening up, getting ready for the day, or stretching out after we've been at the computer or driving, kind of letting our body, our muscles stretch out. Maybe we had a stressful time or an argument. We got to kind of stretch out. Okay. And then one last stretch. Yay, I love stretching. And then back down. Wonderful. Okay. So we can wiggle our fingers and toes. We can do any kind of stretches we want to. How did that feel? Did you ladies love that? And if you could, so this is one of the more obvious ones, but I think especially if we're in an office environment, I think everybody is they would understand that you were stretching after you've kind of been here for a while, typing in one position. So that could definitely be added to your self-care practices if that's good for you. Okay. So now our last mindful moment, I'll invite you to take that that comfortable, relaxed, yet alert posture. You can leave your eyes open or close them. Take a few deeper breaths. Kind of check in with your body now. We've learned a lot over the past hour, crammed some stuff into some PowerPoint slides for you. And then we did some mindfulness exercises. What is here now for you? What is your body feeling? What are your emotions? And I just invite you to allow everything to be here. Then I'd invite you to turn your thoughts for a moment. What did you want to get out of this experience? And how has this experience benefited you? Have you found some tools that you can take forward into your life? Okay, and one last breath. And then you can open your eyes if they were closed. You can stretch out. You can feel your body. To ground yourself, feel your body on the chair. So here's some links, and I'll have this as a PDF so you can see all of these links. Here's some links for more information on toxic stress and trauma. That second link is that NPR story on ACEs, adverse childhood experiences, so you can take that quiz. Here's some information on those stress busters. That's more self-care for toxic stress, the sleep, the nutrition, the being in nature, the mindfulness. These are some resources for that. And then here's where you can find me. I'm on LinkedIn, I'm on Twitter. I have a website with mindfulness resources, and I'm on Instagram. Here's some more video presentations that I've done. I've spoken at conferences about this and different webinars. So if you wanted more information from me, this is where you would get it. And then here are the resources that I cited in those wordy PowerPoint slides. Okay, so thank you very much.